Hi, everybody. This is Augie. I am one of the hosts of Queer Book Club and the president of Bisexual Queer Alliance Chicago. So, with me today, I have author, writer, activist, and speaker George M. Johnson. They are the author of books All Boys Aren't Blue and We Are Aren't Broken. George, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm George M. Johnson, Emmy nominated writer and executive producer, as well as the New York Times bestselling author of All Boys Aren't Blue. My second book, We Are Not Broken, also won several literary awards, including Carter G. Woodson Honor for my writing. And I think it was a International Library Conference Award as well for my writing in the young adult space around Black lives. Um, yeah, I speak. I do a lot of work around Black LGBTQ affairs, as well as someone who's very prominent in the fight against the HIV epidemic.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks for sharing. And, I was able to read your intro and the first chapter of All Boys Aren't Blue. And you pretty much say in the intro, like, there's going to be pretty much giving everybody a forewarning. Like, this is a little bit about my life. And it's also a manifesto. It's me dealing with my identity, both as a queer Black man, even though you identify as non binary and just dealing with so many different issues within the Black community and dealing with masculinity. How was that for you growing up? And then what was the writing process as you were just writing this down, pen to paper?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, it was a journey. I mean, that's what the book is about. About, you know, I think about the importance of all the things that I went through because the book doesn't happen unless I go through those things. And so a lot of times people often ask, like, is there anything you regret or anything you would change about your past? And it's like, well, no, because a change to my past means that this book probably doesn't happen. So I have to accept the things that happened in the past and know that they became the catalyst for who I get to be today and the words that I get to put into the world today. It was a tough journey. Like many of us have at the intersection of our varying identities, being mine being Black and queer, because it was a learning of my own community, especially when I was in high school, because I went from being part of a majority population in elementary school and middle school to then being the minority population in a predominantly white and Asian high school. And so that was tough for me because I was looking for ways to express my Blackness that was always being stopped because that was not the environment for us to have our particular culture shared. And then throughout that, I'm figuring out all of these feelings of my identity and am I trans, am I queer, words I didn't really have the full language to process of what it was. I just knew I felt different. And so that's really what it felt like to navigate that space. And I always say when it came to writing the book, for me, it wasn't me as an adult writing the book. It was like me having the language as the 5-year old who didn't have the language, or the 10-year old or the 15-year old. So it's like my younger versions of myself wrote this book. I just was the vessel to put it out into the world. But realistically, it was like I'm old enough to now have the words that these particular versions of myself felt. And so these particular versions of myself were writing the story for the book. I just happened to have the words to help those versions of self be able to finally put it on a page.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And this leads me to my next question. What was your writing process like this and also your secondary book? And then what also like differentiates from that to what you're currently writing on that we'll also discuss a little bit later on in the
I mean,
interview?
my writing process back then, I used to write 10 to 12 hours a day. So I would usually get up around 6 something in the morning and I would write from like 7 to 11, take a break of 2 hours, then write from 1 to 4, take another break of 2 hours, and then write from like 6 to 10. So I could almost get like 10 hours of writing in a day. At that time, I was also still a freelance journalist. So like that also included articles I was writing. So I was writing book and writing articles at the same time. As the book started to pick up steam. And as I started to write the second book, the writing process became much more difficult because now you're taking meetings, now you're doing television and film, now I'm traveling a lot more to do speaking engagements. And so realistically, I switched from like a time period of having a whole bunch of hours a day to write to just having like certain word counts, just having like, okay, I want to get this chapter done today. And so like I have a to-do list that I look at every day that's like, okay, how many words are we gonna write today? If I know I'm gonna have like a day free of meetings, then I try to make those like my 10,000 word days,
Mm.
knowing that even if I get to like 7,500 words in that day, like I'll be happy with it. But I try to hit like 10,000 words in a day because it really sets me up for success. And I always do, I'm a numbers person. So like, for instance, like my fourth book is draft is due like September 12th. And so I just look at like, all right, I have 12 chapters that need to be edited. And I just take the number of days and it's like, okay, you need to do a chapter every 3 days or a chapter like, and I just kind of break it up like that. Because it keeps me on pace. And then if I get ahead, then I know at least like, okay, well, you're doing good because you're ahead. I can take maybe a little bit of time off of this one and work on this project. My whole thing is like I never miss or I rarely miss a deadline. I'm pretty good about my deadlines, and I write pretty quickly. That's something that my publishers have always leaned on, the fact that I write fast.
Mm.
Um, and so sometimes I just lean on it myself and remind myself like, you got this because you know you can do this. But yeah, it's all about time management. That's really what it all boils down to at the end of the day is time management.
Awesome, awesome. So I know just because of the success with your first book, All Boys Aren't Blue, you managed to work with Gabrielle Union on doing a live reading that viewers can now see on Amazon Prime. How was it like working with Gabrielle on this project?
Well, the All Boys on Blue dramatic reading actually was done outside of Gab. So like the project I'm working on with Gab is either television and film. This was like a pandemic project, and
Oh,
so
okay.
what happening was, yeah, this was like we were all stuck in the house, and we were like, well, let's do something with the book. And so actually worked with Jennifer Lewis and Delon Burnside and Bernard David Jones and Tommy Hobson were all the actors in it. And so we wanted to just do something different. Like a lot of times books have dramatic reading rights and a lot of people don't use them because they don't know how to use them. And so this was like one of those rights that just sit in your contract that's like, well, let's try it and let's use it. And it ended up going to like 21 film festivals and doing very well. It won a GLAAD award and now it's Emmy nominated. And so it really was a passion project. And I think it was important because everybody doesn't learn the same way. So everybody can't just receive the words from reading a book. Some people learn visually and need to see it visually played out for them to be able to receive the knowledge. And so I think what it did was it created another vehicle for people to heal and vehicle for people to learn from the material. And it also created an access point for those who may not be able to get the book. It gave them a touch point of still being able to kind of be nourished by the things that were being written in the book. So it was a really great project that helped me learn a lot about the TV landscape and the film landscape and how that works. And I think even more about like what it means to adapt a material because adaptations look different. And this was one of those things that became like a real big teaching tool for me.
Awesome, awesome. That kind of segues into my next question. I know you're not part of the guild, but this is obviously a hot topic issue now with its relevancy. We have the actor strike and the Writers Guild strike that's been going on. What are just some resolutions that you would like to see happen for other writers like yourself? Because I know you're dabbling into the film industry and you have a couple projects coming up that do affect that. So I'm just curious to know like your thoughts and potential resolutions and where executives can meet in the middle with writers so that we could get writers back to working and feeding their families respectively.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's like a meet in the middle as much as it's just that people just need to be compensated for the work they do. I mean, like, even with me, like, we do a lot of work for free, writing treatments and a lot of pre-work, a lot of meetings, a lot of before you ever even get to pitch a television show, a lot has to be done. Decks have to be done and all these things, and they're not compensated. And so, people should be compensated for work that's being done, even when you're just in the pitch process, in the pitch stage. And then when you get to the actual stage of something being greenlit, you're paid to do your work, but then the whole residual issue comes up to play, right? I think I saw somewhere like $354 million would like solve this, and we're looking at studios say they're making billions in profit. So this is not a meet in the middle thing. It's just a do the right thing. And I think that's where we're at. Studios have just decided that they don't have to or they don't want to do what's right um, by the writers and by the actors. Um, I think, yeah, it's like the resolution is easy. It's like pay the people what they need to be paid. Like I don't know what it's like, it's like it's like everybody wants to, or studios or people, executives and pundits want to make it complicated, but it's really not complicated. Like if these shows are making all of this revenue and these movies are making billions of dollars, you need to pay people what they're worth and pay people for the work that they did to create this thing that ended up in the world to make this money. Um, I think though, this is one of those times though where, to ensure that we never fall into like this place again or this trap again, when the next new thing starts to come into the market and take over the market, like that's when we have to start having these conversations. Music industry had already been through streaming. So once television and film started and you started to see like, oh wait, streaming starting to take cable over, like that's when those conversations have to happen.
Mm.
And it's just unfortunate that we've gotten to like this stalemate situation. But I think everybody knows at some point television shows have to get made because the studios can only live but so long on back content before people start canceling subscriptions. And it's just like, yeah, it's not worth it. Like I want new shows. That's what keeps the industry running.
Exactly.
So I have hope that an agreement will be reached. But yeah, I mean, there have been like ways that they have gotten around, like doing mini rooms instead of actual full writer rooms, and like there are just too many edges and corners being cut for profit margins, and people just need to be compensated for what the.
So this leads me to my last question. Is there certain projects that you're working on that you'll be able to disclose that you're not contractually obligated at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, in the publishing world, I'm working on my third book, Flamboyance, The Queer Harlem Renaissance I Wish I Knew. That comes out next year. So I'm really excited about that because that's my first book outside of telling my story. So, I mean, parts of my story are in it, but like I'm talking about other people for the first time in a way that's not a memoir. So I'm really, really excited about that. That book is being illustrated by Charlie Palmer, who did the book cover for All Boys Aren't Blue. So it's going to be an amazing, it's like an art project, really. It's like literature and poetry and actual art. So that's
Awesome.
very Harlem Renaissance. So it's like the Harlem Renaissance all in one package. So very excited about that. My fourth book comes out early 2025. It'll be my first middle grade book called 5 Second Violation. So I'm really, really excited to do, and it'll be my first fiction book. And then my fifth book will come out in 2025, late 2025, called There's Always Next Year, that I'm co-writing with the great Leah Johnson, that did You Should See Me in a Crown. It is a Black queer young adult romantic comedy, and we're really, really excited about it. Television and film side, me, Gabrielle Union, and several others now are working on developing All Boys Aren't Blue into something, either a television show or a film. Can't do much now while the strikes are happening, but
Mhm.
uh, we have ideas in the works. We have things in the works, and so like once the strikes end, I'm hoping that we have some really really great announcements about that. And so yeah, then there's some other television and film stuff. It's like a lot of ideas being thrown around, a lot of matchmaking happening for when the moment comes.
Mhm.
But yeah, I have a lot going on and a lot of speaking engagements coming up across the country. So I'm excited about that too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for just taking your time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. If you guys haven't already, drop a like on this video. It helps others like yourself find content. If you haven't, definitely consider subscribing to our channel if you've been enjoying this content. And we'll drop some links for George's work. And if you have read his work, definitely let us know in the comments. I'm pretty sure he'll swing by the channel and check out, see what our viewers like to talk about his work. Thank you all for watching this, and we'll see you in the next one.